In year 11, I thought the only way to get a 99 plus ATAR was to study non-stop. I pulled all-nighters, rewrote my notes perfectly, and spent hours on productive tasks that actually didn't help me remember anything. And then I completely burnt out. Fast forward to year 12, and I took a completely different approach. I studied for fewer hours, but more effectively. I got 8 hours of sleep every night, went to the gym 3 times a week, and still had time to see my friends. And guess what? I ended up scoring an ATAR above 99. So in this video, I want to share 5 lessons I learned while building out the study schedule that helped me score a high ATAR, including how to structure your daily routine around your natural focus periods so you can study less but learn more. Use a simple weekly planning system so you always know exactly what to study each day. How to treat sleep, exercise, and social time as non-negotiables so you can avoid burnout and stay productive. How to test and refine your study routine until you find what works best for you and what a realistic study schedule might look like for you. So let's get straight into it. I'll start with lesson number 1. Structure your daily study routine around your natural focus periods so you can study less but learn more. Most students assume that the secret to a high ATAR is studying for as many hours as possible. You've probably seen people flexing about their 12-hour study days, pulling all-nighters, or rewriting their notes 5 times over. But here's the truth. Studying more doesn't actually mean learning more. In fact, the smartest students, the ones who actually score 99 plus, don't study all day. They study at the right times, in short, focused sessions, and follow a structured daily routine that makes their study more efficient. This is how they get better results with less effort while avoiding burnout. Now here's how you can do the same. First, figure out when your brain works best. Not everyone is productive at the same time of day. Some people are morning learners. They wake up with energy and focus best before lunch. Others are night owls who feel mentally sharp later in the evening. The mistake most students make is forcing themselves into a study schedule that doesn't match their natural focus periods. If you're trying to grind maths problems at 7 a.m. when you're barely awake, you're going to struggle. Same thing if you're trying to write an essay at 11 p.m. when your brain is fried. So how do you figure out your ideal study time? For the next 3 days, track when you naturally feel most alert. Notice when your mind is clear, your concentration is strong, and studying feels easy. That's your peak focus window. And that's when you should be doing your hardest study sessions. Then, use 90-minute study blocks. Your brain can't focus deeply for long stretches. After about 90 minutes, your concentration starts to drop and your efficiency tanks. But most students don't realize this. They try to push through and study for 3 to 4 hours straight, which just leads to mental fatigue and information overload. The smarter approach is working in 90-minute focus blocks with a 15-minute break in between. If 90 minutes feels too long, start with a 50-minute session, followed by a 10-minute break. The goal is to work in short, intense bursts where you're actually engaged, rather than mindlessly staring at your notes for hours. Once you know when you study best and how long your session should be, you can move on to lesson number 2. Use a simple weekly planning system so you always know exactly what to study each day. The first thing you need to do is figure out what actually needs to get done. You don't want to randomly pick topics to study each day. You want to focus on the highest impact tasks that will actually improve your marks. Each Sunday night or at the start of the school week, take 10 minutes to ask yourself, what upcoming tasks, assessments, or assignments do I need to prepare for? Which subjects or topics do I struggle with the most? What are the most important things I need to focus on this week? And write these down. This is your weekly study roadmap. It tells you exactly what needs your attention the most. Once you know what needs to be done, spread your study across the week so that you're covering almost everything consistently instead of cramming at the last minute. For example, if you're struggling with maths, don't do a random session whenever you feel like it. Schedule it into your week so that it gets done no matter what. A simple breakdown might look like this. On Monday, you do maths exam style questions and an English practice plan. On Tuesday can be chemistry past papers and biology flashcards. Wednesday might be history short answer practice and maths revision. Thursday, you can do an English full practice essay and chemistry spaced review. On Friday, you want to focus on your weakest subject and do a light review of that. Saturday might be a full exam simulation, being a time practice for your weakest area. And then on Sunday, you want to rest and of course plan for your next week. This way, every subject gets covered without feeling overwhelmed. You're rotating through different subjects strategically rather than aimlessly studying whatever feels easiest in the moment. You might even want to take it one step further and plan your daily session the night before. So before you go to bed each night, write down exactly what you'll study the next day. Be specific. Don't just say study biology. Instead say, from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., I'm going to do 20 multiple choice questions on enzymes and review mistakes. And from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., I'm going to revise Module B essay for English and fix up my weakest paragraphs. Now, when you sit down to study the next day, you know exactly what to do and can get started immediately. One thing I do want to just mention with lesson number 2 is that you should have some degree of flexibility. The key to a strong study plan is consistency, but that doesn't mean that your schedule has to be rigid. Some days won't go as planned. Maybe you're exhausted, sick, or an urgent task comes up. That's fine. If you miss a session, don't stress about it. Just reschedule it. The goal isn't to follow your study plan perfectly, but to have a structured approach that keeps you on track over the long term. Once you have a solid study plan in place, the next step is to make sure you're actually balancing study with rest and recovery, which is what we'll cover in lesson 3. Most students believe that the harder they push themselves, the better their results will be. You've probably heard people brag about getting only 4 hours sleep, skipping meals, or cancelling plans because they're grinding for their ATAR. The problem with this approach is it doesn't work in the long term. Trust me, I know. The one thing that changed the game for me completely was prioritizing my physical and mental well-being just as much as my exam prep. Actually, if you take only one thing from this lesson, let it be this. Sleep is the most powerful study tool you're not using properly. You might think you're being productive when you pull an all-nighter, but in reality, sleep deprivation destroys your ability to remember information. Your brain actually consolidates what you learn during sleep. So if you're constantly running for 5 or 6 hours a night, you're forgetting a huge chunk of what you studied. You should also make sure you're moving your body every day to keep your brain sharp. If you're constantly sitting at your desk, your energy levels will crash, your motivation will tank, and you'll start to feel sluggish, both physically and mentally. That's because your brain and body are connected. Exercise improves memory, focus, and mood by increasing blood flow to the brain and releasing endorphins. And no, you don't need to hit the gym for 2 hours a day. Just 30 minutes of movement is enough to make a difference. Besides sleep and exercise, I also can't stress how important it is to make time for socializing without feeling guilty about it. A huge mistake students make is isolating themselves during year 12, thinking they have to lock in and cut everything out except study. Unfortunately, this will lead to stress, loneliness, and burnout. Here's how I balance my study and social life without falling behind. I plan social events in advance. Instead of spontaneous hangouts, I set specific times in my week when I took a break to catch up with my friends. I also use social time as a reward. So if I managed to get through my study blocks for the day, I'd grab dinner with a friend or took a night off after I finished an exam. My next lesson is to test and refine your study routine every 2 weeks until you find what works best for you. Your first study plan will not be perfect. Maybe you realize that you study best in the morning. You've been forcing yourself to work late at night. Maybe you're spending too much time summarizing notes and not enough time doing practice questions. So if you're not constantly improving your study system, you might be wasting hours every week on things that don't actually help you learn. So every few weeks, set aside 10 to 15 minutes to reflect on what's working and what's not. Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, are my study sessions actually productive? Do I leave feeling like I learned something, or am I just going through the motions? 2, which study techniques are helping me remember information the best? Am I getting results from active recall, past papers, or maybe another method? And 3, am I balancing study with sleep, exercise, and breaks, or am I just burning out? If something isn't working, change it. Your study routine should be flexible. The goal is to keep making small improvements so you're always studying smarter, not just harder. You can also use this time to test if your study techniques are working. And if your current study methods aren't getting results, it's time to test new ones. Maybe you've been rewriting notes, but if you switch to active recall, you start remembering more. Or maybe you've been reading textbooks passively, but when you start doing time practice papers, your performance improves. You don't have to make massive changes every 2 weeks. Just make small adjustments regularly instead of waiting for your routine to collapse. Okay, so we're on to the last lesson of this video now. At this point, you've learned how to study at the right times, use a structured weekly plan, balance study with sleep and exercise, and refine your routine based on what works. But even with all that knowledge, you might still be wondering, what does a good study session actually look like? So, Instead of just giving you principles, here's a full breakdown of a high-performance study schedule that you can test for 2 weeks. After that, you can adjust it based on your own focus patterns, commitments, and what feels best for you. Let's start with a weekday schedule. First, you wake up at 6:30 a.m. Start the day at a consistent time, even if you don't have morning classes. Waking up at the same time every day helps you regulate your energy levels and prevents exhaustion later in the day. If you commute to school, let's say from 7:30 to 8, use this time for light study, like reviewing notes or flashcards. This keeps concepts fresh without draining mental energy before school even starts. School will then run from 8:30 till 3:30. Stay engaged during class so you absorb as much as possible before you even sit down to revise later. Take notes on key concepts, but don't worry about making them perfect. Your goal is to actively listen and understand. After school, give yourself a short transition period before jumping into study mode. Take a break to reset. Grab a snack, relax, or do something that doesn't involve screens to avoid mental fatigue. Then from, let's say, 5 to 6 or 6:30, have your first study session. This is your deep focus block, where you work on your most difficult subject first. Use active recall, practice problems, or exam-style questions rather than just reading notes. After the first session, it's time to take a break. Have dinner with the family and use that time to switch off. And then try to go for a walk or do some light movement since you've been seated for the past few hours. After that, you can have your second study session, say from around 7 to 8 p.m. This session should focus on lighter tasks, like refining essay plans, watching lecture summaries, or revising previous study material. You can add in an optional third study session from 8:15 to 9 p.m. if you have a big test or assignment due. Use this time to wrap up work. If not, spend it on light revision or simple relaxation. And then, from 9 p.m. onwards, it's time to start winding down and avoid intense study at this point. Your goal is to relax and transition into sleep mode. Spend time with family, read, or just do something calming. You should be ready for bed at around 10:30 p.m. to ensure you're getting at least 8 hours of sleep. Weekends, give yourself more flexibility. So instead of following a rigid routine, make 3 main study blocks spread throughout the day based on whether you have social plans. For example, you can have one study block from 8:30 till 10 a.m. and then the second one from 10:30 till 12 p.m. And then you can use the rest of the day to relax. Or if you want to add a third, lighter study block, you can do so between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. The rest of the time should be spent relaxing, exercising, socializing, or pursuing hobbies. Weekend study may be important, but it shouldn't consume your entire life. Otherwise, you'll just burn out. All right, so you have everything you need to build a high-performance study routine. One that actually works, helps you study less, but learn more, and keeps you from burning out. If this helped, let me know in the comments what part of this routine you're going to try first. One tool that can help you in your study routine is Excel HC Copilot, which includes detailed study notes, concept maps, and past papers with instant feedback on your answers using AI technology. Check out the link in the description for a free trial. And if you're serious about maximizing your ATAR, check out this video where we break down 6 proven strategies to help you achieve a 99+ ATAR. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.